Florida is more than beaches and theme parks. It's a land layered with ancient secrets. Beneath its swamps, along its coasts, and deep within its forests lie traces of lost civilizations, strange artifacts, and unexplained ruins. From mysterious coral structures to prehistoric burials preserved in peat, Florida's past hides stories that challenge what we think we know about this sun-soaked state. The Coral Castle of Homestead. South of Miami, hidden behind coral walls and whispering palm trees, stands one of Florida's strangest creations, a place that seems to mock gravity and logic alike. It's called Coral Castle, and if you ever find yourself in Homestead, you can still walk through it. It feels like something out of a dream. Massive stone gates that move with the touch of a finger, spiral towers carved from solid rock, and perfectly balanced blocks weighing tons, all built by one man alone in the dark, with tools no one ever saw him use. The man behind it was Edward Leedskalnin, a small, quiet Latvian immigrant, barely 5 feet tall, and weighing around 100 pounds. In the early 1920s, he began building Coral Castle, saying only that he was doing it for his sweet 16, a woman who had broken off their engagement back in Latvia the day before their wedding. Heartbroken, he came to America and began his life's work, something no one could ever fully explain. What makes Coral Castle such a mystery isn't just the heartbreak behind it, it's how he built it. The structure is made of oolite limestone, a dense coral rock found naturally in the area. Each block weighs several tons. Some of them are as large as the stones used to build the pyramids. Yet Ed had no heavy machinery, no team of workers, and no formal engineering knowledge. Still, over the course of about 28 years, he somehow quarried, carved, and moved more than 1,100 tons of rock completely by himself. Neighbors sometimes said they saw strange things. A few claimed they'd look out at night and see Ed working by lantern light, quietly shifting giant stones as if they were weightless. When asked how he did it, Ed would only say, "I understand the laws of weight and leverage." Others believed he knew secrets long lost to ancient builders, the same kind of knowledge that raised Stonehenge or the pyramids of Egypt. In 1936, Ed decided to move the entire structure 10 miles north to its current location in Homestead. Again, he had no help, at least none anyone could prove. He hired a local trucking company to transport the stones, but he refused to let anyone watch him load or unload them. He'd cover everything up, disappear for a few hours, and when the driver returned, the truck was ready to go. Whatever he did it in secret. Inside Coral Castle, you find strange symbols and features that seem to mix science, astronomy, and pure whimsy. There's a sundial that still tells accurate time, a stone telescope aligned with the North Star, and a stone throne room with chairs for guests who never came. Every part of the site feels intentional. Precise angles, smooth balancing, hidden patterns. There's even a 9-ton gate that once rotated perfectly, with a single push of the finger, balanced so delicately that it seemed almost alive. When it stopped turning in the 1980s, engineers had to bring in cranes and modern tools to take it apart. They found Ed had balanced it on a metal rod set into an exact center point, a feat of engineering that no one has been able to replicate with the same precision since. Many visitors who come to Coral Castle sense something else too, a quiet sadness woven through the stone. The place feels like a monument not just to mystery, but to heartbreak itself. Ed had never remarried, never finished his education, never sought fame. He lived on the property in a tiny room among his sculptures, charging visitors a few cents for a tour. His signs were hand-painted and matter-of-fact, admission 1, and when curious guests asked how he'd done it, he'd smile and say, "It's not difficult if you know how." Over the years, theories have piled up like the stones themselves. Some say Ed discovered how to reverse magnetism, or use the Earth's natural energy fields to lift the blocks. He was known to study magnetism deeply, even publishing a small booklet called Magnetic Current. In it, he described energy as flowing like a current of tiny north and south particles moving in opposite directions, a concept that, while unusual, hinted at something he might have actually applied. Others claim he was inspired by lost Atlantean technology or ancient Egyptian techniques. Skeptics, of course, say it was all just careful leverage, physics, and sheer patience. But even with those explanations, the precision and solitude of his work still seem extraordinary. When you walk through Coral Castle today, it's hard to escape the feeling that you're standing inside a riddle. The air is still and warm, thick with salt and the hum of insects. The coral walls rise like fortress battlements, worn smooth by time, but still solid as ever. Every corner seems to hold a secret, an alignment, a pattern, a whisper of something Ed never told anyone. He died in 1951, leaving no clear explanation behind. His tools, a mix of homemade pulleys, chains, and wooden tripods, were found scattered around the property, but nothing that truly solved the mystery. In his final years, Ed had written short notes warning people to be careful with electricity and magnetism, as if he'd tapped into something he didn't fully understand himself. Since then, Coral Castle has drawn everyone from scientists to mystics. Engineers have studied it for years, trying to replicate his feats on a smaller scale, usually without success. Others see it as evidence that ancient civilizations might have used similar hidden knowledge, something beyond modern comprehension. And still others visit simply to feel the energy of the place, which some describe as magnetic or oddly peaceful, as if the stones themselves carry a quiet pulse. Tour guides like to say the mystery isn't just in how Coral Castle was built, it's why. Maybe Ed built it as a message, or a kind of eternal letter to the woman he lost. Maybe it was a way to prove something to her, to the world, or to himself. Whatever his motive, the result is a monument that has survived hurricanes, heat, and decades of speculation without a single stone slipping out of place. If you go there today, you can still touch the coral walls and feel how rough and warm they are. You can still sit in Ed's throne room and look up at the stars through his stone telescope, just as he once did. And as you walk through the quiet paths, it's hard not to think about the man who spent nearly 30 years carving a love story into solid rock, one no one else could ever quite understand. Coral Castle remains one of Florida's most haunting testaments to human mystery and devotion, a place that refuses to give up its secret. Whether it's ancient knowledge reborn or just one man's brilliant obsession, it stands as proof that some mysteries, even in the modern world, can never really be explained. The Windover Bog Bodies. In a quiet patch of land near Titusville, Florida, just a few miles from the Kennedy Space Center, there's a small pond surrounded by trees and brush. It doesn't look like much at first glance, just another swampy stretch of water in the middle of nowhere. But beneath its surface lies one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries ever made in North America, the Windover Bog Bodies. Back in 1982, construction workers were clearing land for a new housing development when their equipment struck something strange. At first, they thought it was an old log or a pile of stones, but when the workers looked closer, they realized they'd uncovered human bones. The sheriff's office was called in, thinking it might be a crime scene, but soon archaeologists were brought in too, and what they found would completely rewrite the history of ancient Florida. What they uncovered at Windover wasn't a few bones, it was a cemetery, a remarkably ancient one. Over the next few months, as the excavation expanded, scientists uncovered the remains of more than 160 individuals, all buried in the peat of the bog. At first, no one could believe the age of what they were finding. Radiocarbon dating revealed that the burials were roughly 7,000 to 8,000 years old, dating back to around 6,000 BCE. That makes Windover older than the pyramids of Egypt, older than Stonehenge, older than most known civilizations on Earth. What made this site even more astonishing was how well preserved everything was. The peat in the bog had created an oxygen-free environment, which slowed decay and preserved organic materials that would normally vanish over time. Not only were the skeletons nearly complete, but even brain tissue, hair, and fragments of clothing had survived for thousands of years. In some cases, scientists found brains so well preserved that they could extract ancient DNA, a scientific miracle at the time. As archaeologists studied the remains, they began to piece together a picture of an ancient people who lived simple but sophisticated lives along the shores of what was once a small lake. They were hunter-gatherers who fished, hunted deer and turtles, and gathered wild plants for food. Yet their burial practices showed an unexpected depth of care and culture. Each body had been gently placed in the water, sometimes wrapped in woven fabric made from plant fibers. Some were pinned down with stakes, likely to keep them from floating up. The dead were laid on their sides, facing west, with personal belongings such as tools or small ornaments beside them. The details of their care for the dead stunned researchers. Children, elders, even those with illnesses or disabilities, all were buried with the same attention. This wasn't a rough, primitive group. It was a community with ritual, compassion, and understanding of life and death. One burial held a middle-aged woman with severe arthritis. Another had a child with a brain defect. Both had lived long lives, suggesting the group cared for those who couldn't care for themselves. The site also offered rare insight into what early Floridians looked like and how they lived. Their teeth showed patterns of wear, consistent with a diet of fibrous plants and meat. Some individuals bore signs of healed injuries and diseases like arthritis or infections. But overall, Their bones were strong, proof of a hard but stable life. Their DNA, when analyzed, revealed genetic links to early Native American groups, confirming that these people were among the first to inhabit the Southeast after the Ice Age. What fascinates people most, though, is the mystery of why they buried their dead in the water. It wasn't a common practice anywhere else in the ancient world, at least not like this. Some scientists think the bog's calm, shallow water might have symbolized a boundary between worlds, life and death, earth and spirit. Others suggest it was a practical choice. The Piri preserved the bodies naturally, maybe even intentionally, but there's also a spiritual stillness at the site that makes you feel the answer might go deeper than science can reach. Then there's the matter of the fabric. The Windover people left behind woven cloth made from plant fibers, the oldest known textiles in North America. The patterns were tight and deliberate, evidence of a surprisingly advanced level of craftsmanship. Whoever made them had not only skill, but an artistic eye. It's strange to think that 8,000 years ago, long before metal tools or written language reached the region, people here were weaving fine cloth and wrapping their loved ones in it before laying them to rest. When the excavations ended in the mid-1980s, the site was carefully preserved and recovered to protect it. The artifacts and remains were moved to laboratories, where years of study followed. Every discovery raised new questions. How large was their community? Why did they vanish? And what might still lie buried in other Florida bogs, waiting to be found? Standing near the site today, it's hard to imagine what it once was. The land has returned to quiet, covered in grass and reeds. There are no monuments or museums right on the spot, only a small marker acknowledging what was found there. The Windover people lived and died thousands of years before the first European ever set foot in Florida. Yet their story feels deeply human. You can picture them fishing along the lake, caring for their children, building fires under the stars, and grieving for their dead in the same way we do now. For archaeologists, Windover was a window into a forgotten chapter of North American history. For everyone else, it's a reminder that the past is never as simple as we think. Civilizations rise and vanish, but compassion, ritual, and love for the people we lose seem to be universal traits, ones that go back far beyond recorded history. Some locals like to say the bog still holds secrets. After all, only a portion of it was ever excavated, and new technologies might someday reveal even more beneath the surface. Maybe there are still untouched graves down there, or artifacts that could change what we know about Florida's first people. But for now, the Windover Bog remains still and silent, keeping its mysteries sealed in dark water and ancient peat. When the sun sets and the air grows heavy, you can imagine the faint outlines of the past figures moving through the fog, tending to the ones they loved, unaware that their quiet acts of devotion would one day become one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in America. The Tokabaga Indian Mounds. If you head to the edge of Old Tampa Bay, near the small town of Safety Harbor, you'll find a rise in the earth that doesn't look natural. It's not a hill, exactly. It's too symmetrical, too deliberate. This is the Tocobaga Indian Mound, one of the last visible remnants of a people who once ruled this stretch of Florida's coast long before European explorers ever arrived. The Tokabaga were part of a network of tribes who lived along Florida's central Gulf Coast around 900 to 1500 CE. They thrived in an area of estuaries, mangrove forests, and rich fisheries, where the line between land and water blurred with every tide. Their mounds, some built for ceremonies, some for burials, and some for everyday life, once dotted the shoreline. But over centuries, storms, erosion, and development erased most of them. What remains today, especially at Safety Harbor, is both a historic treasure and an enduring mystery. Standing at the base of the Tocobaga Mound, you can feel the layers of history under your feet. Archaeologists believe the site served as the center of the Tocobaga chiefdom, possibly their capital. The mound rises about 20 feet high and overlooks the bay, built entirely by hand with shells, sand, and soil carried one basket at a time. Each layer marks centuries of use and renewal. From the top, you get a view that must have mattered deeply to the people who built it. Open water stretching toward the Gulf, shimmering under the Florida sun. The Tokabaga lived in wooden homes thatched with palm fronds, clustered around central plazas where ceremonies and councils were held. Their lives revolved around the sea. They fished for mullet and catfish, gathered oysters, and hunted small game in the nearby forests. Their tools and ornaments, made from bone, shell, and stone, show both artistry and practicality. Yet for all that we've learned from excavations, much about their spiritual world remains a mystery. Like many mound-building cultures across North America, The Tokabaga likely saw their mounds as sacred. Some were platforms for temples or homes of powerful leaders, others held the remains of their dead. At Safety Harbor, artifacts like pottery shards, carved shells, and ceremonial objects suggest that rituals took place here, possibly offerings to spirits or ancestors. The mound's alignment with the bay may not have been accidental either. Some researchers think it was positioned to mark celestial events or seasonal tides, blending natural and spiritual significance. When Spanish explorers first made contact with the Tocobaga in the 1500s, they described a strong, organized people. In 1567, Pedro Menéndez de Avilés, founder of St. Augustine, sailed into Tampa Bay and met with the Tocobaga chief. He found their village built around a large central mound with smaller ones nearby, surrounded by dwellings and wooden palisades. The Spanish noted how the Tocobaga used dugout canoes to move through the waterways, how they fished with nets made of palm fiber, and how they honored their dead by placing them carefully in mounds. But this meeting between two worlds was short-lived. The Spanish established a brief mission at the site, but tensions quickly grew. Violence, disease, and cultural conflict followed. Within a century, the Tokabaga people, like many other Florida tribes, had vanished, their population decimated by European diseases and slave raids. By the 1700s, their villages were gone, leaving behind only the mounds and fragments of pottery to tell their story. For years, the Tocobaga mound at Safety Harbor sat largely forgotten, overgrown with trees and brush. It wasn't until the early 20th century that archaeologists began to recognize its importance. Excavations revealed the mound's intricate construction, layers of shell mixed with sand, sometimes alternating with ash and charcoal. Pottery styles matched those of other mound sites in the region, confirming that this was indeed the heart of Tokabaga territory. Today, the mound is part of Philippe Park, a quiet, tree-shaded waterfront park named after Odette Philippe, a French settler who arrived here in the 1800s. Visitors come to picnic or watch the water, often unaware that they're standing on ground where an entire culture once thrived. A small plaque tells the story, but the land itself feels like the real monument. You can climb the mound along a short path to the top, where the wind off the bay carries the scent of salt and mangroves. Standing there, it's easy to imagine the Tokabaga people gathering below, canoes pulling up on the shore, smoke rising from cooking fires. Despite all the archaeological work, certain mysteries remain unsolved. Why did the Tokabaga choose this particular location for their main settlement? Was the mound a seat of government, a temple, or something more symbolic? And what spiritual beliefs guided their rituals? What stories did they tell about the sea, the sky, and the ancestors buried in the shell and earth below? Some believe the mound may have served multiple purposes over time: a political center, a burial site, and a ceremonial stage. Others think its elevated position symbolized a connection between the earthly and the divine. There's also the intriguing possibility that the Tokabaga inherited older mound sites and expanded them, building layer upon layer over generations, making the mound not just a structure, but a living record of their community's life. The site also carries an eerie, almost timeless quality. Locals sometimes report a sense of presence there, an energy that feels watchful but calm. At dusk, when the sunlight fades over the bay and the air grows still, it's easy to sense that something ancient lingers. Maybe it's just the weight of history, or maybe it's the collective memory of a people whose voices were silenced long ago. Today, the Tokabaga Mound is protected as a National Historic Landmark, one of the few surviving ceremonial mounds in Florida still largely intact. It's a place of education, reflection, and quiet mystery. For some visitors, it's just a scenic overlook. For others, it's sacred ground. In many ways, the Tokabaga Mound stands as both a warning and a reminder. Civilizations, no matter how strong, can vanish. But the land remembers. The shells, the soil, and the patterns of the mound carry whispers of the people who once lived here, people who built with their hands, honored their dead, and found meaning in the balance between earth and water. If you visit Philippe Park today, pause at the top of the mound and look out across the bay. The view hasn't changed much in 1,000 years. You might hear the rustle of the wind in the oaks, the faint splash of fish in the shallows, and for a brief moment you can almost picture the Tokabaga canoes gliding home under the fading sun. The Egmont Key Ruins. At the mouth of Tampa Bay, surrounded by turquoise water and shifting sandbars, sits Egmont Key, a small island that seems peaceful at first glance. But beneath its palm trees and crumbling walls lies one of Florida's most layered and mysterious places. The Egmont Key Ruins tell a story that stretches from ancient native peoples to Civil War soldiers, lighthouse keepers, and shipwreck survivors. The island looks calm, but its past is anything but. Egmont Key is remote enough to feel like you're stepping out of time. You can only reach it by boat, and as you approach, the ruins appear suddenly from the trees, weathered brick walls, overgrown pathways, and fragments of buildings half swallowed by sand. The air smells of salt and seagrass, and the only sounds are wind, gulls, and the rhythmic crash of waves. It's beautiful, but also a little haunting, especially when you realize how much history has been lost here. The story of Egmont Key starts long before the bricks and cannons. Archaeologists have found traces of indigenous people who used the island for thousands of years before Europeans ever saw it. Shell middens, ancient mounds of discarded shells and bones, suggest that local tribes, possibly ancestors of the Tocobaga or Calusa, came here to fish, gather, and trade. Some of these shell mounds were later cleared away when the US military built on the island, but fragments still surface after storms, silent reminders that Egmont's human story began long before recorded history. In 1848, a massive hurricane struck Tampa Bay, destroying ships, homes, and much of the coastline. To help guide future sailors through the dangerous waters, the US government built the Egmont Key Lighthouse a year later. It stood tall and proud for about a decade before another hurricane nearly washed it away. Rebuilt in 1858, that lighthouse still stands today, a weathered but steady beacon on an island that has never stopped shifting. Then came the Civil War, and Egmont Key found itself caught in the middle. The Union took control early on, using the island as a strategic base to blockade Confederate ports and guard the mouth of Tampa Bay. The lighthouse keeper, suspected of Confederate sympathies, was forced to flee. Soldiers built small forts and outposts, some of which were later expanded into the large brick ruins you can still see today. The war left the island scarred but not abandoned. By the 1890s, the US Army had returned with a new mission. Fearing foreign threats after the Spanish-American War, they built Fort Dade, a sprawling coastal defense system that turned Egmont Key into a military town. It had brick barracks, gun batteries, a hospital, even a movie theater and tennis court. More than 300 people lived there at its peak, including families of soldiers stationed to guard the bay. Walking through the ruins now, it's hard to imagine that life once bustled here. You can still see the outlines of Fort Dade's brick streets, the crumbling stairways that led to watchtowers, and the massive concrete gun batteries facing the sea. They were designed to protect Tampa Bay from invasion, but no enemy ever came. The guns were never fired in battle. By the end of World War I, coastal defense technology had already moved on, and Fort Dade was abandoned by 1923. But Egmont Key's mysteries don't end with the soldiers. The island also has a darker chapter that many visitors never hear about. During the Third Seminole War in the 1850s, Egmont Key was used as a holding site for captured Seminole prisoners before they were shipped west to reservations. Later, during the Spanish-American War, the island served as a camp for Cuban refugees escaping Spanish rule. Layers of human displacement, conflict, and survival are buried beneath its sand. Because the island is constantly eroding, losing several feet of shoreline every year, the ruins are slowly disappearing into the Gulf. Whole sections of Fort Dade have already been claimed by the sea. When you walk along the beach, you'll sometimes see old bricks, foundations, or fragments of walls half buried in sand. Some visitors describe finding rusted metal doors, pieces of tile, or shell mounds uncovered after storms. The island feels like it's in motion, always changing, slowly erasing its own history. There's also an eerie quality to the place that's hard to shake. Locals who visit by kayak or small boat often talk about the stillness that hangs over the ruins. It's not silence exactly, there's the constant hiss of waves and cries of seabirds, but it's a kind of quiet that feels old, as if the island is listening. Some say they felt a strange presence at the abandoned lighthouse, or heard faint sounds that resemble footsteps or distant music at night, though no one else was around. For those who study it, Egmont Key is more than a ruin. It's a living archaeological site. Under the sand, remnants of indigenous tools, pottery, and artifacts continue to emerge. Historians still debate whether earlier civilizations used the island as a seasonal settlement or a permanent one. Its shell layers suggest thousands of years of use, long before the first fort ever stood. Each new storm uncovers something old, blurring the lines between ancient and modern history. Today, Egmont Key is a state park and wildlife refuge, jointly managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The island has no permanent residents, just seabirds, gopher tortoises, and a handful of park rangers who come and go. There's no electricity, no shops, no place to stay overnight. Visitors come by ferry or private boat, explore for a few hours, and leave before dusk. It's peaceful but fleeting, like touching history that's slowly being washed away. When you walk the cracked paths of Fort Dade, you might notice how the ocean creeps closer each year. Some of the old streets now lead directly into the waves. Palm trees grow through the floors of former buildings, their roots cracking through brick. Nature is reclaiming everything. And in that strange balance between civilization and decay, Egmont Key's mystery deepens. Was the island simply unlucky, caught in the path of hurricanes and history? Or was it always meant to fade, its stories dissolving into the sea like the shells of the people who first walked its shores? Either way, standing there, it's impossible not to feel humbled. The Egmont Key Ruins remind us how quickly time erases even the strongest walls, yet they also prove that traces of the past never truly disappear, they just sink deeper into the earth, waiting for someone to notice. If you ever visit, bring water, sunscreen, and time to wander. Let the silence settle in. Look out across the water, where ships once passed, and you'll understand why this tiny island continues to captivate anyone who sets foot on it. The Everglades Lost City Legend. Deep within the tangled waterways and endless marshes of the Florida Everglades lies a mystery that has baffled explorers for over a century, the legend of a lost city hidden beneath the swamps. It's a story that blends history, rumor, and the unrelenting curiosity of those who've dared to navigate this vast wilderness. They call it the Lost City of the Everglades, a place some believe holds the remnants of an ancient civilization swallowed by time and nature. The Everglades are unlike anywhere else on Earth, a slow-moving river stretching across millions of acres, filled with cypress trees, mangroves, and a maze of islands and waterways. To early settlers and adventurers, the land itself felt almost alive, whispering secrets through the rustle of sawgrass. It's easy to imagine that something ancient could be hiding here, untouched for centuries. Stories of a lost city in the Everglades first began surfacing in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Native legends told of mysterious stone ruins deep in the swamp, and as European settlers pushed south, they began hearing the same tales from the Seminole people. Some claimed that when the water levels dropped during dry seasons, strange stone formations could be seen peeking through the surface, too geometric, too deliberate to be natural. Then came the explorers. In the 1920s, a few daring adventurers claimed to have found remnants of ancient walls made of limestone blocks. One man, named Fecka W. Skeels, described a discovery near Cape Sable, a series of stone structures and perfectly round holes cut into bedrock, unlike anything built by known native tribes. His reports caused a brief stir among newspapers, but the thick wilderness and shifting waters made follow-up expeditions almost impossible. Some theorized the ruins might have been built by early Native Americans long before the Seminoles arrived, perhaps the Calusa or a mysterious predecessor. Others pushed more dramatic ideas that the city might be Atlantean in origin, or even part of a lost civilization connected to the Mayans. In the 1930s, rumors spread that aerial surveys had captured unusual geometric shapes in the swamp, patterns resembling roads, circles, or building foundations. But when researchers returned to verify, the rising waters and dense vegetation had swallowed everything again. There are also accounts from pilots who claim to have seen straight lines or rectangular clearings in areas no human had reason to enter. One Navy pilot in the 1940s described spotting what looked like a grid-like structure beneath the water before turbulence forced him to turn back. When he returned, he couldn't locate it again, a detail that only added to the legend. Archaeologists, for their part, have found evidence of ancient habitation throughout southern Florida, especially from the Calusa civilization. The Calusa were a complex people, building large shell mounds, canals, and water-based structures that still puzzle researchers today. They lived in harmony with the wetlands, building entire communities on shell islands. But even their most impressive works pale in comparison to the grand stone ruins described in the Lost City stories. Some suggest the Lost City legends might actually stem from natural limestone formations. The Everglades sit on a bed of porous rock, and over time, water erosion can create shapes that mimic man-made structures. But skeptics can't fully explain certain patterns reported by explorers: circular holes perfectly cut into the rock, or low stone walls aligned with compass directions. Were these coincidences of geology, or the remnants of something man-made and long forgotten? There's another layer to this mystery, the spiritual side. The Seminole and Miccosukee people speak of sacred places within the swamps, areas that are not meant to be disturbed. Some of the lost city tales might have grown from encounters with these ancient ceremonial sites, misunderstood by outsiders. To the tribes, these were not ruins of a lost city, but living spiritual landscapes, the resting places of ancestors. Even modern technology has struggled to uncover answers. Satellite imagery and LiDAR scans have been used to study portions of the Everglades, but the terrain is incredibly difficult to map due to constant flooding and vegetation cover. A few curious formations have been noted, but none definitive enough to prove the existence of buried ruins. Still, amateur researchers continue to explore, convinced that somewhere beneath the murky waters lies proof of a forgotten civilization. One recent theory suggests the legend could tie into the Boimoni Road, an underwater rock formation near the Bahamas that some believe is part of Atlantis. The Everglades and Boimoni share similar limestone geology, leading some to propose that both could be remnants of a larger landmass once above sea level thousands of years ago. When the oceans rose after the last ice age, much of southern Florida's coast disappeared underwater. Could the lost city be one of these sunken remnants, now hidden beneath the swamps? Today, the legend lives on among locals, researchers and adventurers who venture into the Everglades' remote corners. The region's eerie silence, the hum of insects, and the occasional ripple of an unseen alligator make it easy to believe you're walking through a place that keeps its secrets close. And while most archaeologists lean toward natural explanations, they don't dismiss the idea that ancient peoples once lived and built deep within the wetlands. If you visit the Everglades today, the mystery feels close enough to touch. The air is thick and still, the horizon a blur of green and gold. Somewhere beyond the visible world, beneath the peat and mud, there might indeed be stones arranged in a forgotten pattern, all that remains of a civilization erased by nature's slow hand. Whether it's a lost city, a sacred site, or simply the imagination of explorers, the story refuses to fade. The Everglades seem to demand mystery. It's part of their character, ancient, untamed, and quietly guarding whatever truth lies beneath the surface.